everyone watches women's sports. Everyone.
Everyone watches
Everyone.
women's sports.
Everyone watches women's sports.
3, 2, 1, yeah!
Everyone watches women's sports. The podcast. Episode 2 of Everyone Watches Women's Sports podcast. Our interview guest for the episode is a former Chicago Red Stars of the National Women's Soccer League, social media coordinator, current Chicago Sky of the WNBA, social media coordinator. Also, some of you may not know, current host of the Curious and Judgmental podcast. And also, most importantly, had a recent apparel collaboration with State Champs streetwear company Hose Mad Collection, none other than the wonderful Connor Moore. Many of you know Connor from his antics and content from behind the Chicago Sky media page recently. So let's start just by your background. Tell us, the listeners, where did you go to school, and was social media management and content creation, was that originally where you wanted to find a space for yourself in sports, or was that something that just kind of came to you?
Yeah, first off, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
I'll I'll just start off by saying absolutely the hell not. Like social media was not something I had any idea or honestly at the time any interest in doing when I went to school. So I went to school at Wisconsin Whitewater. I'm a Warhawk. Very, very happy and very excited to be able to say that I'm an alum there. And I went there for journalism, broadcast journalism. I was the sports director for the TV station there and the radio station. I wrote a little bit for the newspaper there too. So journalism was always was the be all end all for me.
Right.
Then I graduated in 2019 and just tried to get like little different like freelance things, whether it was production stuff, this, that, the other.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. And right around when it did, and at that time I was interning for the National Basketball Players Association. And then yeah, COVID happened like shortly after the All-Star break. So that was great, or the NBA All-Star break at that
Right.
time, which was in Chicago.
Which is your
And
home
then
base.
Yep. That was a dream come true to be able to contribute and help with the different events for NBA All-Star in my backyard and to go to the All-Star game.
Yeah.
That's a bucket list item that's just knocked off right
Yeah.
there.
That's a
Um,
bucket list item for some fans, let alone people who work like in the league and with the league.
yeah, and to go to that just as a fan, right? Like just not even having to work it, just sat in a box and was able to drink and all that stuff for the All-Star games. It's like, cool, this is great. But yeah, no, I ended up getting into the sports world fully, like working.
Uh-huh.
I got a call in the middle of 2020, right when the NWSL was beginning their inaugural Challenge Cup over in, I think it was in Utah. I think it was in Sandy, Utah. Was and I was doing a lot of remote stuff, like helping out and everything here on a part-time basis. Ended up being moved to a full-time basis as like a content, I guess, coordinator, so to speak.
You're right.
And then when the social media person left at that time, Joe Azar, he left. I ended up being tabs to run social media. My boss at the time, Lindsay Goldner, was like, social media is content. Do you feel comfortable doing it? I was like, yeah, I guess. Here we
Why
go.
not?
And it worked. I mean, it was so weird to see the following that like my personal page ended up getting off of that. And it was really cool to see like the growth that I even had during that time, and to parlay that, being in the NWSL for what, a year, like really one full season,
Right.
and then like half of a year, like half of 2020. To parlay that to then jump to the WNBA in 2022 was kind of surreal. The circumstances were kind of messed up, I won't lie,
Yeah.
given everything that happened at the time and in that particular era of the NWSL. But they are long past that, thank goodness.
Right. As we know, a
Um,
lot of changes have come recently.
absolutely, and for the better, and the league looks stronger than it's ever have
Right.
has ever. So yeah, that's how I've kind of parlayed that into being in social media in the WNBA with the Sky, and it's uh it's been a weird ride. It's been a very, very weird ride. I won't sit here and lie. Like there's still a lot of times where I'm just like, there's not a chance in hell I should even be doing this. But it's cool. It's really cool to go from not even caring to wanting to do social media just off of my own stuff. So now it's just like, oh, this is my job.
Right.
So
Well,
it's
I'm
cool.
sure it's a different, I'm sitting over here laughing because I'm sure it's a completely different aspect when you have fans or like not just fans of the team, but also just like basketball fans
Mm,
quoting the team page and the posts you make from the team page
yeah.
with your personal name
Yeah.
because they are so worked up for good or bad reasons about what you're
Yeah.
posting that they're like Connor, oh my gosh, and I can't tell
Yeah.
you, obviously you know it, that and the people that follow this guy and follow that social media page know that like it's more often than not when you have a dunk with your content, people are always like, oh, that's Connor.
Yep. Yep.
So
That was the thing I had to get used to very quickly. And I really got used to it when I think it was ESPNW picked up one of the tweets that I had posted after a game against the Fever. It was on that one I was like, oh, I can't. Like I'm notoriously someone who just does not like a spotlight, which is so ironic for someone who went to school for journalism. Like I'm
right.
very much just like show up, do my job. Okay, everyone did a good job. Like, high five, everyone's cool, everyone great job. Leave me the hell alone. And
Right.
then I just go back home and like I'm done, right? I'm the dead last one to want the attention. And it was at that point when like between that and when the tweet that I had about super teams and light the beam and whatever against New
Yep.
York, which like Kalia Copper and everyone just
That was
went.
like the tweet.
Yeah, I think that was the tweet that I think like Cheryl Swoops and everybody was talking about on their podcast. That was the one where I was just like, oh, I can't run from this anymore. And I'm gonna try, but I'm gonna run. Like I'm literally just gonna hit tweet. Like I would obviously like repost it on my president. I was like, yeah, this is cool. But then the next day I'd be like, okay, yeah, it was a good tweet. Everyone shut the hell up. Like
Luckily,
it
going
was
private on Twitter is an option.
honestly. So it's been cool. But yeah, no, I've seen people like take it and either actually tag me or just like drop me and go like Connor, what the hell are you doing? And I know you're one of them. You are guilty of it so many times too.
Like every other tweet is like that when there's a
Uh,
good tweet. Everybody, I feel like every other person is like,
a
Connor,
little
oh my
bit.
God.
No, I would see those. I saw Kaz, and once I saw Kaz, I was like, ah, hell. I was like, now you've done it. I was like, now
Now
you've
everybody
done
knows who
it.
you are. You can't hide
I was
anymore.
right. I was like, you've done it now, Kalia. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people repost that, like players, fans, friends. Like I said, you've done it a couple times. I'm like, God damn it! I can't go one day. Like I can't go 1 hour without you doing this, man. But it's been cool. It's been really cool. It's been awesome. So I can't complain.
Well, you deserve the credit for your content. Obviously, you're doing a great job when people are like jonesing to figure out who's the person behind this great content because it's not, it's like hit after hit after hit. So, so good job there. As
Appreciate
you
it.
kind of mentioned, you were and are fortunate enough to have worked in both the NWSL and the WNBA during an abundant rise to popularity for both
Yeah.
leagues. So what is the insider perspective on that growth for specifically someone who works for the team but isn't an athlete? Like what is that like?
Honestly, it's amazing. I think you don't join this business or you don't work in this business if you're not a fan too, right?
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure there's people who they can be like meh, it's kind of a paycheck. But for me, I've been a fan. Like I was a fan of women's sports so much, like in when I was like in middle school and high school, people thought I only cared about it because I thought they thought it was a ploy for me to try to get people to like me or try to impress girls or whatever, which wasn't the case, right? Like I
Right.
literally had
It's a
like
very specific type of girl that follows women's sports
right,
specifically.
right, especially at that time, and like I was the one that had like, I had posters of like LeBron and everything like that on my wall, but I had like 4 or 5 posters of Candace Parker on my wall too growing up, like it was exactly like trust me, I saw, and
For those of you
I
not watching the video version, I'm wearing my Candace Parker Chi-Town jersey for this
yeah,
podcast.
she looks good doing it too. But it I've always been a fan of women's sports, and so to be a part of it and to see it grow, I mean, from where it was really when I started and back when I was just again in middle school and high school and when I first started joining the workforce, and then to see where it's at now, like I touched on earlier, the NWSL is as strong as it's ever been,
Right.
and the WNBA, I don't even need to tell you like how the growth has been for that the last 2, 3 years,
Right.
and that's just a start. Like we can go back 4 or 5 years, 6 years, even like the growth of that is so big,
Yeah.
and it's only going to get bigger and better with the personalities we have in the league now, and the discussions that are had, and the players that are coming in to
Right.
the league or have yet to even enter the league right now. So to have worked in both leagues and to have seen the growth, whether after I've left or currently now in my
Right.
current position, it's as a fan, it's awesome. As a
Yeah.
fan, it's amazing. You
Exciting.
love it. It's so exciting. Yeah, like because
I'm sure
you
there's got to
know,
be some buzz around like the office, like not even just with your own team or players that you're covering, but also just like, for instance, like things like today with Caitlin Clark setting the all-time
yeah,
scoring record, men or women. Like there's just got to
absolutely.
be buzz around every single thing that goes on. Like, oh my God, did you catch that game last night? Oh, Aces
Yeah,
this,
man.
Liberty that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and it's great because like some of my best friends who, they'll say it to my face. They've admitted like they don't really follow women's sports a whole lot. The only time they
right.
really do, or the only reason that they kind of keep it on their barometer is because I've worked in it the last 4 or 5 years,
Yeah, they know they
across
have somebody that's there.
right, and to hear them get like super into it, like my co-host on my podcast, Kyle, like he's all aboard the Caitlin Clark train, which in all honesty is super dope
Yeah.
because it went from like me being the only one that like cared about women's sports to now, like my core friend group are just like, yo, we want to get tickets to go to this game and this game and this game, and hey, can you talk to me about this? Or
Yeah.
I remember last year I went up to go visit them for a weekend and I go in and without even asking them, they're just like, "Hey, like if you don't mind, we're watching the women's final four." I'm just like,
If I don't mind.
"You?" I'm like, "You?" So it's been great, and again, I think that's just a credit to the popularity that both leagues have gone. I mean, and
Right.
don't get me wrong, I still think there's work to be done on both fronts, obviously.
Absolutely.
But I think the momentum that they both have. I mean, no one can say that people don't care about women's sports. I think that trope is dead and buried and beyond 6 feet under at this
Right.
point, right?
Right.
So I guess to answer the question from someone working in it, it's amazing. It's awesome to see, but it also presents an opportunity for everybody working in where it's just like, okay, like we've got to harness this somehow. We have to harness this momentum and use
Yeah.
it to our advantage
Yeah.
however way we can.
Seize the moment for sure. For sure.
Exactly.
So you mentioned kind of in your answer to that last question, you have had the opportunity to work with and cover some legendary names in women's sports, both in the soccer world and in the basketball world. And as we know, it's getting more and more popular to also cover things like player fits and
Yeah,
extracurriculars like player charities and fundraisers and other things that they are committed to outside of teams, as much as showcasing on social media platforms their on-court performance and achievements.
mhm,
So how do you find a balance as a social media coordinator between shaping, the style of content that you post about somebody, like for example, Diamond Shields, how
yep,
do you, like contrast between she has a great personality, but she also has some serious on-court stuff that people really need to know
absolutely,
about?
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a great question. Well, first off, I mean, it comes down to like having a phenomenal team. And I work with, I know everyone could probably toss out like, oh, we work with it, but like I fully believe like wholeheartedly, like I work with like a top three WNBA content team like ever, Amber, Crystal, Lena, Christy, Annette,
Some shout out to the coworkers
Carly and
here.
Tristan on right, like Carly and Tristan on PR. There's so many people else that I'm missing, but like the main content team, it comes down to that. So I think
Yeah,
when you have a team like that always tries to be at the forefront of anything that helps, right? For me, my whole thing wherever I've gone is always trying to take a good chunk of like read the pulse of what's happening on social, know what the discussions are, and
absolutely.
really tap into that. I mean, that's really all my captions and all like my ideas came from last year. It was just like really, it was a mixture of me, of my personality, my goofiness, I guess, but it was also just like if there's a discussion going on Twitter and everything that's becoming like polarizing or anything like that, like I'm not afraid to tap into it when the time is right,
Right.
like
Yeah, like if they're
like
always asking about a certain player's shoes, let's showcase the shoes. Like
exactly. Like so to find that balance, it's, obviously sticking, trying it definitely is trying to find the balance of not trying to keyhole ourselves into one particular thing, but it's
right,
also just like it's a lot of reading the room, right? It's a lot of reading the room, and that's for good and for bad, right?
right.
Like if there's something bad happening that might be focused on a specific thing that's more related to us, probably not going to really want to touch on that a whole lot. If I have the ability to
Yeah.
not to, obviously there's certain things where like I have to post and
Right.
everything, but
So
outside of that, if I
you're almost answering the next question that I was going to ask you. So like when you're in
yeah,
social media content creation and you have a campaign plan, right? You've put all this thought into
hmm
somebody and you've like listened to the Twitter comments, the Instagram comments and so on and so forth.
yeah,
And then something happens that creates breaking news like there's a trade
oh man,
or
yep,
whatever. Like how do you
yep.
either like heel turn or how do you do both? Like how does that change your job?
Yeah, no, that's a PTSD question after what happened about a couple weeks ago. So
that's
thanks.
that's where the chaotic captions come from.
Yeah, it just comes from my train of thought, just death screaming. But in all honesty, I mean, the name of the game is flexibility. You
Right.
have flexibility and adaptability. In
Adaptability.
this, like in this business, regardless if it's a trade or player movement or anything, like whether it's internal stuff, like you have to be ready at almost a moment's notice. And it's a blessing and a curse, in
Right.
social media where like you feel like in social you can be tapped into everything that's happening, to the point where, when the dime well when we reacquired Diamond,
Right.
the whole seeing her tweet about like saying like, hey, like I'm a superhero based on everything I've gone with, like
Yeah.
I would have been a fool to not tap into that, knowing how much she's beloved here in Chicago. Like I would have been a fool not to do
100%.
that.
100%.
And so I
Especially
tapped
because
into
so many
that.
people with her specifically, so many people did not know the background of her story, the
Exact.
details of her medical situation that happened, and how long that has taken her to deal with, both from a physical and a mental
Oh my
standpoint. You know what I
goodness.
mean?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
like
So
you
like
said, that was a
something
golden
like
opportunity as far as content goes.
exactly. Like I know a lot of people will probably look at that particular thing and be like, "Oh my God, like he was going against like everyone that was talking mess." I was just like, was it part of that? Maybe, maybe not. I'm never going to admit that, but people know damn well that I like to tap into to like the petty part of my brain.
The
But in
chatter, yeah,
right, but in reality, again, like I mentioned, it's her story is her story and she is a superhero with everything. And so
right,
again, I mean, it wasn't anything that I made up. It came from the source herself. But the name of the game to really balance all of that is just trying to adapt and just being ready. And like I mentioned, it's a blessing and a curse where the blessing is always feeling like you're tapped in.
right.
That's also the curse because it's like in a way you almost feel like you have to always be online and always have to be available at a moment's notice. Like I
Chronically
can't even
online.
begin yeah, like I can't even begin to tell you the amount of times like I've literally been at like, going to like zoo nights or whatever out here during Christmas. I remember one year and next something broke, with the Red Stars and I was like, ah hell, I gotta get this out.
Yeah.
Like and I'm on standby watching zoo lights in the giraffe exhibit with a spiked apple cider, just like ah. So
Chaotic.
uh, uh, it's chaotic is the word, but I think that's the biggest thing to try to balance it. It's you have to be willing and able to adapt, and
Right.
I don't think that's just a sports thing. I think it's just working in social in general. And
Definitely.
if you don't,
Working in
and it
general.
honestly, like like if you fail to have the ability to adapt or the willingness to adapt when you have to, things aren't going to go the way you want them to, or things will fall apart very quickly. And we're in a day and age where people see through that so easily
So
online right
true.
now.
Yeah.
So it's
So true.
and that's a battle that I try to fight every day, where it's try to stay authentic and everything, but also get the news that has to go out. It has to go out. So still trying to stay authentic to all of that.
Right. So we only have a few minutes left. I don't want to take up too
Yeah,
much of your time in the afternoon. Thank you so much for coming on. But
always,
just
always.
to close out, you did talk about it a little bit. Um, there's been a
Oh
handful of
no.
times, obviously, where fans are fully aware that you created content and they're acknowledging
Yeah.
it in positive ways. Does that create even more pressure for you, or do you find that it makes like kind of the ideas come a little bit easier? Like, is it kind of like like a source of inspiration, so to speak?
A little bit. I think I naturally put a lot of that heavy pressure on myself because I'm probably the worst critic out of everybody,
Of course.
But again, I think it's so easy to to know that we're gonna have like a really fire graphic because Christian and that are on it. Like
Yes.
I know the video is gonna be good, whatever what if it's about a player or a sponsor or anything, because Amber and Lena and Crystal are on it. Like they're pros at it. Like I have the easiest job, which is figure out what the hell to say and press the send button,
Right.
like so like
Right.
I have the easiest job out of all of them, and and that's not even to minimize anybody. Everybody plays such a crucial role, but
Right.
it does put a little bit of pressure, I guess, because we want to try to keep up momentum.
Yeah, of course.
Um, and we want to keep the vibes going when we have the ability to tap into good vibes. But again, I think that's the nature of the beast here, right?
Right.
Like it's you don't want to go, you don't want to have like a one-off thing, be like, oh, this piece was so great, and then the
That
rest
one
of it is
time.
right that one time, and then you're just like, well, what happened? What
Yeah,
happened
it's
to,
like, how do we do that again all the time?
right, and luckily, again, like I'm part of a group that I don't even think that's an option, so for me, I think the only pressure that I ever truly had was that it was I think when people kept on like texting me like in games last year when we're in the final 2 minutes and it's looking like we're about to win and everyone's like, what the hell is the caption gonna be? Like, I haven't thought of it yet. Like I don't think of these things, people.
And
I
not
want
only
that
that, I'm not gonna tell you before I put it out.
right. Like I want that to go on record because I know like I've literally like texted you too. It's just like when you've been like, so what's the caption going to be? 10. I'm like, I haven't even made it to the arena yet. Like I haven't even ate my
Better
lunch, like
start
let alone
thinking.
right. I was like, I don't even know what I want to eat at the subway next to the arena, let alone what I'm gonna say if we win. Like, yo, like let me get there. 6 hours away.
Well, the
But
back against the wall tactic definitely works for you. So keep
it
that up, I suppose.
I I'm trying, like I said, it comes from a place of just like letting the vibes dictate everything and then just
Right.
tapping into my own goofiness. And sometimes the internet does a job for me. If people are acting a fool on the internet and I'm able to use that against them, I use it against them. I'm not even gonna sit here and
Absolutely.
act like I don't. Like
Right.
I've absolutely seen like discussions online, and in the back of my head, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna say,
But I'm
but this is source material.
yeah, I'm taking that.
So
Yeah. I
so
love it.
I'm so
Spicy.
I try not to watch everything, but I do keep an eye on a lot.
Of course.
People may not realize I was like, yes, I like to tweet a lot on like my own personal page, but I also tweet a lot about like how I like to take breaks and everything. But I'm on the Sky page a lot more than people think. I see a lot. I
That's
see
funny.
everything. So needless to say, like people that are like, oh, he'll probably never seen this. Oh no, I've seen it, and I've probably used it as source material,
Yeah, I'm
whether
probably
they
get
know it or
a
not.
few screenshots of it sent to me as well.
Probably. There's been a few things that I've seen, and and I've definitely texted him, just like I'm like, oh, they've just waken up. They've awoke a beast in me now. Like, I
Every
hope to
time.
God we win. Like, I hope to God we win. And I've
Uh,
literally gotten messages from you like mid game, and you're just like, well, just like it's happening. Like, oh, this don't look so good. I'm like, Taylor, shut up. Like, I just want to focus at work.
I gotta
Like, I
poke the
gotta.
bear. You know how I am.
I know how you are, and it's part of the reason why I enjoy you. But I'm also just like, God damn, girl, like I gotta work. Like I'm still in the middle of like it's the third quarter. Like I got highlights to post. But yeah, no. I guess to really answer that question is like the pressure. I think it comes natural, but again, it becomes so much easier when you're surrounded by some of the most talented creatives, not just in the W, but just in the sports world in general. They make my job 1,000 times easier to the point where it's just like I just want to make sure that I find the right thing to say
Yeah,
so it goes with how good the
the
content is.
content is.
And
Yeah, I love that. I
so
love that.
that's
Gotta,
that's that's the biggest thing. And
like you said,
yeah,
just like for the team. You know what I mean? Like the team
honestly,
that's working behind the scenes, obviously. You know what I mean? And the literal
ab-
team that's on the court as well. But
absolutely.
so in closing, as we have mentioned a couple times, you just recently started your own podcast, Curious and
Yeah.
Judgmental. So give us all the plugs, tell us
Oh
where to
my
find
gosh.
it, where
Yeah.
to track it down, where to listen, all the things so
Yeah.
we can go support you.
Yeah, so it's with one of my best friends, Kyle. We went to college together, and we've had podcasts before. We've hosted radio shows before, and it's been dope. And it's a podcast where it's like basically we've taken inspiration from New Heights, Action is Detrimental of by Denny Hamlin, and just a hodgepodge of a whole lot of different podcasts that we listen to, and just our natural born personas, I guess.
Right.
And yeah, we've talked about everything. We've talked about the serious stuff, and then in the last episode, we literally spent an entire episode talking about our top 10 Super Bowl halftime shows. We so there's nothing there's nothing
Everybody has a list.
stopping
It's
us.
fine.
Exactly. Like everyone's lying. It's like, oh, who does that? You. Like you do. But obviously, people can follow me at Connor Moore _7 at your own risk.
Right.
You can follow my friend Kyle at Howard J Dingers with a Z at the end. The podcast is C_and_J podcast for Curious and Judgmental podcast. And yeah, we're hoping to get a recording up. We're hoping to record this week. We don't know what we're going to talk about yet, but we said we're going to text about it on Monday, and we're going to figure
Well,
this
that's the
out.
beauty of
So
podcasting. You got to talk about what's exciting right now.
exactly, I can already tell you what I think Kyle wants to talk about. Spoiler alert: the name is Caitlin Clark.
Obviously, I was
Uh,
going to say, could I guess?
you you could probably guess and you'd be right, but I'm just gonna spoil it right now. If it's not gonna be me talking about it, it's him.
That's funny.
But
Well, make sure y'all turn in to the Curious and Judgmental podcast next episode where they'll be talking about Caitlin Clark.
probably we'll have to have you on the show sometime. That'll be
Yeah, I'd
fun.
love that. I would love that.
Absolutely, I love it. I'd love
Well,
it too.
thank you so much for coming on. And we will, of course, keep our eyes peeled for all of your content in all the places. And thank you so much for coming on the show. And as I always say, it is not just statistics, it's a movement. Everyone watches women's sports.
Ain't that the goddamn truth?